Hello everyone, today I'm looking at Legacy of Kain, Defiance. I love this game. This game was so good, so well-rounded, and I'll be honest, the real reason I really like Defiance is that it's the first Legacy of Kain game that actually finishes a story. And so in the previous two games, you had all of these other threads and stories that were all tied up and interweaving. And then they introduced time travel in the second game. And there were just 3 different timelines going on, 500 years in the past, present, future. And it just got so convoluted, and it ended on another cliffhanger like the first game. And honestly, by the second game, I was thinking about dropping this series. I was like, I can't take this. Having a bittersweet cliffhanger where it's just the bad guys never resolved was so demoralizing. I couldn't continue with the series, and I thought, well, Defiance is the last game in the Raziel trilogy, so to speak, and so I thought, well, I might as well, I'm already 2 games through this trilogy, and I didn't really realize, because these are the Kain games, these are the Raziel games, even though, and of course the whole naming convention of the whole series as you play the games gets more and more confusing. So it's like, is this a Kain game? Is this a Raziel game? Well, actually, this one is both a Kain and Raziel game, and this is the one that actually ties up all the loose ends of the story and brings us full circle to the beginning or conclusion or the outset of the other 2 games, because of course it involves time travel, and it's such a satisfying conclusion. I'll talk about it later, but yeah, so this is the first, this is hard to say, first in the Soul Reaver series. I mean, they're all Legacy of Kain games, but this is the first one you actually play as Kain, and I hadn't actually played as Kain before. I was just looking at Raziel and Soul Reaver. So anyway, when you actually start the game, I thought it was actually a little bit confusing, because when you do begin at the outset of this game, in the previous one you had Raziel, who had denied fate by not merging with the Soul Reaver, which was proof to Kain that, oh yes, Raziel is the only one who actually has free will and can defeat the destiny that has been transcribed on me. And so you get more of Kain's story in this one, and exactly what his issue was, which was that essentially he was destined to be Balance Guardian. He rejected that claim, and because of that, the pillars got corrupted and demons were unleashed onto the world. And through that, Raziel is the Redeemer who... And I think, I don't know, Kain goes back in time and he can't undo the present, but somehow Raziel is the free agent that he uses to essentially undo his fate. And I find it really interesting because Raziel, he's being competed against all these other factions. So there's Mobius and the Elder God and the other vampires and the humans even, who all want him to do their bidding because he's the only one with free will. So they're all competing against him. And so Raziel just gets used to it, claiming everyone is his fake master. You're all treating me like a pawn, get away from me. And even Kain, to that extent, wants Raziel to do his will so he can undo the damage that he's done, and so he doesn't have to live with the regret of the destroyed world he lives in anymore. So, and it ends off in the second one with that Raziel making that decision to not merge with the Soul Reaver. And so that ends in some weird time paradox, and the game just kind of ends there. At least, and this one, it just opens with Kain in some random castle being like, okay, this is Mobius's castle, and I'm coming for him. I'm like, okay, we were just... Previous game was completely different scene, and I have to give credit to the second game because it at least had the decency to say, hey, here's a CG cutscene of the last cutscene of the previous game so that you're a full circle and you know exactly where we are. And this one, it just kind of starts and you don't really remember or know exactly what was happening. And it really honestly doesn't matter because once you get into the action and the gameplay and the flow of everything, it kind of all starts coming back to you. But anyway, playing as Kain is interesting. So while with Raziel, whenever he's in a material form, his energy is always slowly draining and he always has to absorb souls to keep his material form in place. Kain's ability is that because he's cursed with bloodlust, he has to constantly feed on blood while he's alive and active, which means that your health is actually always constantly decreasing, which is a really cool mechanic. The other thing that Kain has is that Raziel later gets as well in this game is that Kain has telekinetic power, so he can like distort things and move things. Also, Kain has a very different move set. Instead of having a bunch of elements he switches to, he has essentially this cross grid style attacking pattern. And with this, it'll change the element the blade has, which, you know, the blade attacks pretty much the same, but his ultimate attack will have a very different style of ultimate attack. For example, one is called Dimension, which lets him teleport and like hit everyone on the map. There's another one called, I don't know what it's called, but like Madness, where he lets out this red wave of dust and enemies start fighting each other. That's one of my favorites. That's like such a cool mechanic that I've seen in a game where you can like convert enemy players immediately, and it's not like an RTS thing. There's also one that what is it? The one that makes a general explosion, one that has lightning and like etc. and other kind of whatever things like that. And his last one is really cool. It's like a time slowdown. That was really, really fun to use. And so yeah, Kain's a very different. Well, I mean, he's kind of similar to Raziel. And what's actually more so different and interesting in this game is that they've, again, I've never played this game before, so I don't know how different his playstyle is to the other Blood Omen games or, you know, Kain games, but they also definitely changed Raziel's moveset to kind of meet Kain halfway or come to adjust itself to be a bit more fluid. So the one major difference you notice when you start this game off is just the movement feels, I don't want to say janky, but kind of sloppy in a weird way, is that everything's very smooth, but not in a good way. Like, out of all the games, out of the 3 games I've played, this is the one where I actually broke through a lot of, like, no-clip through a lot of walls. There's one time I was breaking a destructible wall. I ended up clipping under the ground level and into the water. So, this game, it's functional, but it's part of that, sloppiness where you have to add more resources to do graphics and voice acting and like all this other stuff, and the actual bones of the game get a little, even though they've had three games at this point, it has that bit of sloppiness to it where it's kind of slippery. And so, I mean, one example is that when you press jump, and I'm pretty sure this was in the past, no, I'm definitely sure this was definitely in the first one in the tutorial, it says the longer you hold the X button, the longer you'll jump. That's completely gone. If you tap X, you're going to do your biggest, longest jump no matter what. You can still glide, but your jump ability is you just have to tap X. So I mean, a lot of people say, oh, that's streamlining things, that making it easier. At the same time, I see that as a loss of a function. Like, sometimes I was actually aggravated because I just needed to make a little jump to this little platform, and I just didn't know how much I needed to do, or I always overshot it. So there's like one drawback there. So it's kind of technically less functionality, and for some sections, thankfully, I mean, the platforming is very forgiving. I don't know why, maybe specifically this game, but it is terrible depth perception. That didn't really affect gameplay, fortunately, where it's like, okay, I think I can jump to this platform because it's in front of me and the camera's pointing me towards it, but I'm just not 100% sure. But I'm just going to press a tap X and see what happens. And sure enough, I make this impossible jump. So that's fine. Another major difference, again, is something that is always a point of frustration, especially in an action game, is fixed camera angles. Yeah, so the last 2 previous Soul Reaver games had free camera, which were no problem unless you got in a corner, which is fine. But in this game, it is fixed camera angles, and you think that would fix all the problems. It's like, no, because if you go into like the corner, the camera still tracks you, so you'll still get like corner issues, I guess. But the camera angles and the fixed camera angles aren't really much of an issue, as it's more interesting as a commentary, because this game came out in 2003, and there were other games also kind of doing the similar thing. I think God of War actually came out after this game, but God of War definitely has the exact same camera angles and camera issues. Another game I'm thinking of is Devil May Cry. And this is where I felt the influence and the pull of other games. So not only is it, kind of Devil May Cry and the camera angles, but the moveset, hello. I do like it's differentiated in that you learn it through experience. Like you'll be in a random battle and suddenly, I think there's an EXP system actually that this works off of, but it's not clearly communicated at all. Where you'll just be fighting, you say, oh, you unlocked a new move, and it's like, cool, I'm never going to use that because the basic combo works just as fine. I understand Soul Reaver has always tried to aim to have good combat, but at the end of the day, I felt combat was almost more strategic in the first game, where you had to do a bit of like a running attack and a standing attack, and you had to like find elements in the environment to kill the enemy. I feel there's way more strategy there. Well, this one feels a lot more mindless and monotonous, like the second game, where you're just tapping square just to kill things. You do have triangle, which is like your more powerful move, but the combat doesn't feel great. It feels, again, kind of sloppy. It's very generic, I think is the word that I would use, which is fine because that's not the main reason why it's here. It's serviceable, it's fine, but you can just see that, oh yeah, it's becoming more and more like other games. And so the other Devil May Cry part, I was trying to get to is the moveset. Now, if you hold the triangle button, you launch the enemy in the air, and then he makes a breakdown cut. You can also lean towards the enemy and press the attack button, and it'll do a repeating stab motion. So it's kind of like, okay, moveset setting. Oh, and now there's these energy walls that appears that are green and red that you need to defeat all the enemies in the area to pass through them. So there's that. There's some flirting with DMC, so to speak. And I feel like that's a natural and unnatural thing. Is this the board of directors saying, hey, let's copy this other very successful game that's also kind of in a genre? And as an artist, you say, well, I really like what this guy did. I'm going to do my own version of that. It kind of makes sense either way if they're forced or inspired to do so. The other game that it definitely kind of takes inspiration from, I don't want to say it, but so in the previous game, the temples were like very short. They were maybe 20-minute-ish puzzles. You get a new power-up. And that's the other big thing. Raziel, he can now shift between elements. So the Soul Reaver, he doesn't have to go to a pedestal to get light or dark or whatever power. He just always has that element with him now, which again is pretty cool. So he just switches to it. However, in this game, the temples are way shorter. They've gone from 20 minutes to maybe 10 minutes tops. It's like 2 rooms and a few puzzles. And that's just the other thing I realized too, is that this game felt a lot more linear than the previous one, in the sense that you're just going from A to B. The puzzles are not, I think, anywhere as near as complicated or hard. They're very kind of simple. It keeps the flow of the game really moving, and you'll just get a new element, and it'll just be used for one specific kind of puzzle, and you may not even really see that again, or it'll come back later, but it'll be used for a very specific thing. So it's still very minimal. However, there's one level in this game, the mansion, and that is the one level that feels like, oh, this is a real dungeon. Like it's the one area where it's not completely linear. There's like some backtracking involved. There's some going around. There's this whole puzzle where you have to find 3 spears and solve a bunch of puzzles in this mansion to get artifacts to progress. So it kind of made me think of Resident Evil quite a bit in that area. So it seems like there were some inspirations here, at least on some level, which were all very welcome additions, which were all very, very nice. Again, in terms of gameplay and combat, it gets kind of repetitive, honestly. It got to the point where, this isn't anything really new, but it got to the point where, every fight just kind of got the same. You mash, your attack buttons until you get enough power in your Soul Reaver, and you can use it now to basically do an ultimate attack, and then or it's charged up and use charged up form to take out a bunch of enemies, and just rinse and repeat. At least with the previous games, there was like environmental damage, which technically does still exist in this game, but it's just not very prevalent. The one interesting thing is that it does have sort of KO moves now, where if an enemy is super weakened, if you just leave them alone, they'll die. But if you press triangle, you'll actually absorb their energy of the Soul Reaver, boosting it to its full attack power, or you can drain their blood or their souls in a very cool animation, killing style animation, which was pretty sick. And of course, it's different from Raziel and Kain. What I also love too is just the little nuance. I miss this kind of stuff. The nuances between Kain and Raziel's moveset. This is something you've seen something like Metal Gear Solid 2, The Sons of Liberty, where you have Snake and Raiden, and they'll have the same actions. They'll both roll, they'll both aim their weapon, but there'll just be slight variations in how they do it to reflect their characters' personalities. So while Kain, will stab someone and watch them kind of beg for their life as he laughs at them, Raziel will just be kind of very strict to business. Even their glide animations, Raziel will glide forward kind of aerodynamically, determinedly, while Kain will kind of like descend, majestically with pomp and circumstance. Also, I think the main kind of cornerstone of this game is the development of Kain and Raziel's relationship as rivals and also friends in a weird way. You kind of forget the concept or the idea that they used to be. I mean, Raziel was his subordinate, his vampire sire, who was a seraphim, whatever, and so they worked together. They were kind of sort of friends, or like he was his subordinate to some point, and it's only through jealousy, seemingly, that Kain cast him into the abyss, which is kind of, I don't know, maybe a bit bittersweet, because the one thing I don't like about this game is that it kind of recontextualizes that scene, that this is in the past, so it's kind of like, in order for Kain to do that, to submit the destiny that he wants, he has to cast him in, which kind of seems like it's not out of envy and arrogance that he's doing it in the first place, but out of almost selfless determination that this must be done. But I don't think so, because like the initial reason that he did it kind of set those events into motion, but it's just the time stuff kind of messes up the motivation if you think too much about it, but it doesn't matter. But yeah, Kain and Raziel, they're pretty similar fighting styles. You're going to press square for your light attacks, triangle for your heavy attack. Not a lot of huge difference there. There's some differentiation, and again, their style of attacks, their combos are sort of different. But more or less, you're doing the same kind of actions, basic actions, as either character. And they also just have a different approach to things. Kain, he's just merciless. He is driven. He is determined. But he also has this air of just arrogance and pride about him. And it's interesting, too, because even though he has that pride and that arrogance, he realizes and recognizes that Raziel is the one character who can set him free. He is the one character who holds the key to free will and his salvation. And even though he's his subordinate, now he has to be his peer in a way. He can't just attack him and force him to do things. He has to make this guy that he betrayed, he has to allow him to essentially make the choices in order to save Kain's destiny, even though Raziel wants nothing but vengeance on Kain. And it's interesting how they kind of go from friend to betrayal back to friend by the end of the game. It was kind of moving, honestly, that Raziel kind of comes back to Kain, and I'll spoil it later, but it's a very moving scene where Raziel basically realizes that throughout the game there are these murals on the wall that shows the destiny of the vampire slayer and exactly what Raziel is, and that he's both considered the destroyer and the savior. And there are times at the end of this game where I'm so used to these games ending abruptly and half-assed that I was like, okay, come on, where's the end? Let's speed it up. But there were so many times in this game where I thought, oh, this is the end boss. No, this is the end boss. Oh, wait, this is the end boss. Like, there were 3 times I thought I was fighting the end boss and the game would just end, and it just kept going. There's even one section where I think it's absolutely peak, where you play as Kain and you fight Raziel, and you play as Raziel and you fight Kain, like at the completion of their campaigns. And after that battle, you still, you keep going, you still keep playing, and it's like, oh, okay, that's kind of anticlimactic. I have to still play the game. Like, how is this going to be unresolved? And of course, you keep playing that level, the next level, the next level, and it actually ties up all the loose ends and it resolves. I thought, okay, this is going to be the end of the game, where like Kain is in the destroyed world and he has a possessed Janos Aldrin. No, it keeps going. Now you come as Raziel, and or Kain comes back, and Kain comes back and does the final battle. And I just have to talk about the final scene. The final battle is just, it is the perfect ending, like masterpiece in writing. Amy Hennig is just, oh, it's so good. And basically, I mean, honestly, I thought of things like Sonic Adventure 2, where Sonic and Shadow realize they're two sides of the same coin that have to work together to defeat the big bad evil thing. So the ultimate end boss, like they take out Mobius, they take out a corrupt Janos Aldrin, they take out another like vampire lord, you take out Kain comes back to life. It's like crazy stuff happens, and finally you realize to defeat the big bad evil monster that has been orchestrating all of these things throughout this entire time. The only way to do that is to meet Destiny, and in order to do that, the Soul Reaver needs to be completed. So it's this really fascinating thing where Raziel, in terms of his character and his thematics, is that he is soul. He is a character completely composed of immaterial things, while Kain is material. Also, it's funny that Kain, can't swim. He can't get water. As soon as Kain touches water, he immediately dies. That's like the one weird gameplay mechanic. And it's obviously they developed, it's a mechanical thing, right? They developed swimming mechanics later so that Raziel could do it. It's like, well, it doesn't make sense for Kain to swim, so we'll have this guy swim instead. So it's like, okay, whatever. Kain is all about the physical realm, and Raziel is all about the unphysical. And I think it's also funny that the reason Kain, ripped off Raziel is because he had wings. He ripped off his wings because he evolved. And I just thought in his mind, he's thinking of like all the times in the previous games he's died by just touching water, and now he wishes he could just fly over it, but he can't, and Raziel gets this upgrade. I just thought that was a funny headcanon. That's the real meta reason why he wanted wings, so that he never has to touch water again. So you find out that Raziel is the soul version of the Soul Reaver, which is the Wraithblade, which Kain breaks on his body in the first game, which gives him the soul version of the Soul Reaver, so that they can be combined, I guess, which only sends him back into the past so that they can combine further with the physical one, where it's unbroken, where Kain still has it. So the final thing, like, it's a very emotional, moving scene where it's also very interesting too that Mobius this entire time, he's actually been a servant of the Elder God, which, like, I always thought he was on his own side or something. I never realized he was kind of, because it seemed like he was working against Raziel, but Raziel is also working for the Elder God, so that's a conflict of interest, but whatever. So Mobius, after all this time, after finally completing his master's plan, and the pillars are destroyed and the demon realm is open, and the demons can have their foray into the human realm, and this was the Elder God's plan all along, Mobius, in his final hours, he does not see what the god he serves even looks like. So it's only at the end of his life that he realizes he's serving this corrupt squid serpent thing. And I find that so interesting that Mobius thought he was actually serving some actual divine being that just hated vampires, but the only reason that the Elder God hated the vampires was because they banished the demons into the netherworld for the pillars, and so to undo the pillars to let the demons come in. And like, I have to tell you that all this story, all this lore, it's kind of sprinkled throughout the first two games, and there's like here and there talk of it, but it is so codified and direct and streamlined and luscious in this game, and it ties up everything, and it's done so well. It's like, what I'm really trying to say is that if you've played the Soul Reaver 1 and 2 remaster on PS5 and 4 or whatever, and you're like, oh wow, those first 2 games, they really suck. Like, they just ended on cliffhangers. The third one's going to probably be terrible. It's not even called the third one. It's called Defiance. You think it's another continuation. No, Defiance is the last conclusion to Raziel's story, and it wraps up everything perfectly. And I cannot permit you enough. If you played the first 2 Soul Reavers and you're thinking about playing this one, please play this one. It is so good. It pays off everything that has been set up in this story. It is amazing. And that final conclusion, which I'll spoil right now, is that Raziel, through the prophecies of the forging of the Soul Reaver to who it is or what it is that it's both. Raziel literally is the spirit of the blade itself, and he realizes he needs to sacrifice himself in order for the blade to reach its full potential. And so all the elements he collected and all the work he did imbues the blade to Kain in the real world with the spirit energy and the spirit sight to see this evil god so that Kain can actually fight it. So Raziel went through, and he gives this self-sacrifice speech where he says, I once was your subordinate. I once was your lieutenant, your right-hand man, someone you could trust, and a friend. And today, after all of this rebellion, after all this defiance, I return once again to you. And so I love it because it's a hero story archetype of a full circle, but he's not going back to the same place at the beginning of the journey, but he's going back to the same position he was at, the same moment where he realized he was Kain's right-hand man, that the only way that they can destroy, because by the way, the alternative is that Raziel stayed in that purgatory with his tormentor elder god for all eternity. So yeah, kind of like, I'll do anything to get out of this. So he sacrifices himself to power up the blade so that Kain can finally do the final blow and take out this elder god, and to even see it, to even know what its form is and that it exists, so he can destroy it and make the unseen scene to reveal the puppet masters and finally destroy them. And that is so freaking cool. It is such a freaking cool. And so it's Raziel in spirit with Kain's physical that destroys the evil. And it basically creates this world where, yes, they still live in Nosgoth. Yes, they are still in this realm where the pillars are broken. The demons can come through, but their elder god has been completely destroyed. And the human rebellion that was started, that was a fake cult, actually designed to make the world even worse and destroy the vampires to let in more demons, has also been kind of destroyed. I mean, its leader is gone, Mobius, but if they ever made a sequel, they'd be like, yeah, these weird vampire hunter guys are out there. But yeah, it's a perfect sync up to the beginning where you can see it flowing into the first game, where Kain is like, okay, I'm in this still fallen world, this fallen state, but at least we have the ability to see and perceive evil and attack it. It's kind of very biblical in a way. You know the difference between good and evil, even though you're in a fallen state, and now it's up to you to use your free will and your choice to make the world a better place. That's very, very Garden of Eden. Not that there was a great Eden to begin with, but it's a really nice concept. And in any case, so yeah, and Kain realizes that I'm going to have to raise the seraphim from their graves. I'm going to do all the things that I know I will do and fulfill the timeline and the motion that filled in this timeline. But at the same time, it's still that idea that it's not as bad as if he hadn't fought his destiny. If he hadn't fought his destiny, then he would be stripped or succumb to be the balance guardian like Ariel and be trapped there for all eternity. And so he at least escaped that destiny, which was his entire point in the first place, is that he chose self-preservation over self-sacrifice, and against the tides of fate, all that work and all that effort meant a little bit better, that it got a little bit better, a little increase in his life, and at least he eventually got what he wanted, that he still doesn't have to serve as balance guardian, and he defied the fates. And it's interesting that he called Raziel the idea and the concept of hope, that this person that he ended up being jealous of and torturing or whatever became his one idea and his one hope to salvation that he pursued to the very end, even to the point where he's fighting Raziel and he doesn't want to fight him, and he's allowing himself to be defeated by him in order for him to even be preserved. So it's a very interesting, complex narrative, and again, Defiance pays off everything so well that was set up in Soul Reaver 1 and 2. I'm so excited about it. I can't contain myself, because I went into this thinking I'm not going to enjoy this. I'm not going to, whatever. It's like it's another Soul Reaver game, another unfinished story. No, this is absolutely the crowning achievement, and it's such a good endpoint for the series, and such a good start point for Dark Sun. And I can see now, after playing this game, the environments, the characters, the setting, the vision for Dark Sun was, oh man, it's so much more painful now to know that game was canceled, because I can see exactly what kind of game it was going to be, and I appreciate it way more because Raziel's out of the picture. It opens up an opportunity for a brand new sort of, not a brand new, well, kind of a brand new setting, a brand new character, a reintroduction and a reboot to the series, a next gen HD thing like Tomb Raider did, or Metroid Prime to Super Metroid, or more so like Red Dead Revolver to Red Dead Redemption. It's like, okay, we have this concept, but now let's really drive it somewhere interesting. And again, you see, and I ever since I saw that Dark Sun trailer, I had no idea what Legacy of Kain was, but I was still captivated by it, like really hard. And now that I can see the vision of this game to where it was going, it's so much more painful that game was canceled in favor of a multiplayer game that died immediately. It's almost funny at this point, but I know that there is the Soul Reaver 1 and 2 remasters. I think as I was looking something up, that there's actually a Legacy of Kain Defiance version for the PS5. So because I thought it would be awful if you play the first two games and you don't play the third one, because it is so imperative you play this game, so it makes the last two games actually worthwhile in a way. And I hope they do well, because I would love to be reintroduced to the world of Nosgoth. The writing, the atmosphere, the characters are so good. The gameplay, even the gameplay in the Dark Sun trailer, it looked okay, like nothing fantastic, except the visuals, the characters, the character dynamics, this idea of a shifting spirit world. That's something I've always loved. I don't know why. I think it's so cool that there's a world right beneath this one. There's things that you just can't see. The last time I saw that implemented as a major thing in gameplay was Bloodborne. And Bloodborne was a friggin' masterpiece, not just in terms of gameplay, but story and lore as well. Oh man, I'm just thinking of like a mod for Bloodborne, or a Bloodborne style. Like, what if FromSoft made the next Legacy of Kain game? That would be an E3 moment. That would be a mind-blowing, insane moment. Legacy of, like, you see FromSoft and you see the Legacy of Kain. Oh my god. That would be hands down day one, deluxe edition buy, no questions asked. That would be insane as a game, but I'm just a dreamer, right? But anyway, Defiance, and it is funny, Defiance, like the actual term, I know it's cheesy, but they do link it in to the dialogue. Even the beginning of the game, when you play as Raziel and he's like, oh, I'm not going to follow you, and the elder god says, oh, so this is your Defiance, Raziel, like wink. It's like, yeah, but it really does, the term of the game, like everything on the cover of the game is representative and encapsulated in what this product and this art is. You have Defiance as the main theme. You are defying fate. You are defying time. You are defying your superiors for your own choice, for your free will. also just this, the cover art. You have Kain and Raziel swinging their blades in opposite directions and in different ways. That is exactly what the gameplay is. You play half of the game as Kain, half of the game as Raziel, and they both have slightly different movesets, but pretty much the same. This game was such a good experience. I was so taken aback because I had such low expectations. As you played it more and more and more, it got kind of, okay, this is kind of interesting, but I was just expecting a bad ending that just never came. I was very surprised, pleasantly, by that. But yeah, I would love to see this series come back. I mean, it's kind of like a monkey's paw, like, you know, I say that, but I forget what the modern games market industry landscape looks like right now, so maybe not. But I this is a great IP. If there was a studio that was actually devoted to making a faithful spiritual successor, I would go crazy for it. I now understand how people have niche fans or niche communities where they're like they're a Soul Reaver guy. You know, it's like how you hear about Silent Hill and you're like, okay, so what's the deal? Like where's the moment where it clicks for you? And so, or Klonoa, things like that, where it's just 2 games in a series and a bunch of weird spin-offs. Ape Escape, even. God, oh my God. I'm a person that went from being, Soul Reaver or Ape Escape, some weird whatever PlayStation game, and I've gone from playing it to be like, oh, I love this series. And it's funny, for Ape Escape, for example, like I kind of got in the first game. The first game is very solid. Even the second game, they're all very good. They're all standalone, really great experiences. With Soul Reaver, though, I enjoyed the first game and I liked it, but I didn't love it. The same with the second game. I think the second game is actually the weakest in the series. Soul Reaver 2, it just kind of like they introduced all this timeline stuff that didn't pay off. It didn't make any sense. I just like I don't really care. And they added more like combat gameplay stuff that again I don't really care. But Defiance is the game that made me a fan of this series. It'd be really weird to start with Defiance. I mean, technically you could do it, but it's so much nicer to play because just from like the cover art and the style of Defiance, I feel like a lot of people might have played it as their first game on the PS2 rather than being like, oh wait, Soul Reaver, what's that? But playing it from Soul Reaver 1 to 2 to Defiance, it is a great experience. And again, so Defiance is the one that made me a fan of this series, and 1 and 2 are just there as build up. But yeah, I'm a Soul Reaver fan now. I am absolutely a diehard Nosgoth Legacy of Kain. Well, I mean, I guess I have to play Blood Omen and Blood Omen 2 and whatever, but I love this series now. And Defiance did that for me. I think, I don't know, the ideal Soul Reaver game, it would be interesting because if it was actually made today and if it wasn't a Souls kind of game, there would be some level of open world and exploration and, you know, that kind of stuff. And, you know, getting towers and exploring things and crafting maybe. I don't know how I feel about that. But it is interesting to think about that because the first Soul Reaver game was kind of open world. It was, I mean, you couldn't do open worlds back then. I called them hub worlds, where you have like Banjo-Kazooie or Super Mario, where you have like, okay, here's your hub world and you go into all these other worlds. But Soul Reaver, it originally was designed as this big adventure that it's not just about linear pathway storyline. Yes, there are upgrades you can find throughout that upgrade your health and your magic, which don't really matter. I mean, health is good, but your magic meter, you don't really ever run out of that. But the first Soul Reaver game, it was like, okay, you have to like explore, you have to backtrack, you have to find things, and there's way more puzzle solving. And progressively, the games have gotten way more linear, way more storyline based, way more, okay, here's a combat encounter, here's this, no backtracking, which I appreciate until it makes you backtrack, and it's very obvious where you have to go, and it's kind of railroaded, which is fine. But if Soul Reaver was made today, it would be more similar to the very first game rather than the most recent game, which is a really weird, funny idea that you're going almost back to basics. And I guess that's one thing I just want to comment about, the pickups in this game and the sound design. Soul Reaver 2 had really good sound design. Here, it's very hit and miss. There is some times where the sound design still sounds great for when it's like recycled from Soul Reaver 2, but then there's some sound effects that just don't feel good. Like when you get a upgrade in the little container things, you just kind of crack them open and it doesn't make a satisfying sound. And it doesn't make like a whoosh, zing, or whatever sound. It just appears. You're like, oh, that's it? Okay. Like visually it looks fine, but there's some places where it feels like the sound design is just lacking, and also just, mechanically, there's some places where things are kind of buggy and broken, and, it's a bit finicky. I wouldn't say janky, because that's not, it's kind of sloppy, if it's the right term. But yeah, I think it'd be really cool to have an open world Nosgoth single player experience where you kind of go out into the world. You have different areas, different zones, like World of Warcraft. You have like towers you find and you activate. You have like collectibles. I mean, I kind of say this half-heartedly, where I'm kind of sick of open world games and the kind of time-consuming copy-paste events that they have in it. But as long as you keep the environments distinct and codified and small and unique, I think it'd be really cool. I think it would be really, really cool to have an open world Nosgoth game, and like the pillars would be your starting point. And oh man, I'm just like, it's one of these games, right? These game series where I'm already thinking about how it would work. And I know other IPs. I think of like Jedi Outcast 2. Like, what if it was open world? I know this is one of the games where it generates those ideas. It's inspirational. It has a great cast of characters, very small but very memorable, great abilities. There's so much to build off of. There's so much ingenuity and innovation here, and I love it. And I think Raziel could definitely, maybe not Kain, but definitely Raziel could definitely be like a Smash player or a Smash contender. Just from he has a moveset, he's a style, he's all these other things. He makes him a very classical, recognizable game character. It would be super cool. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff in the Legacy of Kain, and I'll call it the Soul Reaver trilogy, that it's really good. It's very solid, and yeah. For those of you who wonder why fans love this game, this is why. And again, I think the thing that lives on beyond playing these games is the quality of the writing of Kain and Raziel talking about the subterfuge of chaos and conflict, that he's the fulcrum upon which the entire world hangs in the balance. Will one man's free will determine the fate of us all? Just in general, the delivery of the lines, the voice acting, I mean, obviously is incredible, but the crafting of the lines I miss that kind of just generic, hey, this is friggin' epic, this is heckin' epic, deal with it. I miss that kind of writing. I miss that seriousness, that devotion, that passion, rather than unceremonious Marvel quippy writing. It is so played out and so tiresome that I know people are scared of authenticity, and this thing bleeds authenticity. It is so it's great. And of course, on the voice acting, it was bittersweet to see, in the extras, Tony J in the casting room doing outtakes. It's probably the last time we'd see him. I forgot when he died, but it couldn't have been a much long after that, maybe a few years or something. And just, again, my favorite voice actor. And again, the only reason, one of the main reasons I played the original Soul Reaver 1 is because Tony J was in that game. And I just love his voice. And and I thought, oh, that's it. But he's in Soul Reaver 2. He's in Legacy of Kain, Defiance. He's in all three games. I never realized this. And it's a very pleasant surprise. And I think it is somewhat ceremonious or funny that, by the end of the game, it's like, oh, wow, I'm actually killing the Elder God. I'm killing Tony J's character. And for better or for worse, that will be the last game, or at least in this series, that he voiced in. And it feels like a nice send-off. It feels like a nice way to pay homage to that voice actor by going through his legacy of work in that way. And I'm so glad I did it. It's been a great game, great voice acting, great story, great graphics. I like how they added like a little whooshy blur effect in this one when you go to the spirit world. It's not a perfect game, it's not a great game, but the way it made me feel after I beat it was so good, so amazing, so invigorating. And soul heightening, just the dialogue and the writing and the story. It was so nice. And yeah, this reaction is very different from the previous two games, which was just disappointment, to be honest. So again, I highly encourage you that if you do get into this series, start from 1, go to 2, and they're very short games, by the way, but just understand they will not really make sense and won't really be concluded until Defiance. And Defiance, it's a little bit longer, and it feels like a full-length game, but it fully delivers that experience, and it's so nice. Anyway, with that being said, I can't think of anything else to say about this great franchise. I'm gushing, I'm gloating over it, but a good story and a finished story obviously makes a big difference. Anyway, guys, that's all I have to say. I hope you guys get into the Soul Reaver saga as well. Experience this really captivating story, distinct aesthetic, gameplay, whatever, and I hope it inspires you as well. Anyway, I'll see you later, and I'm very happy I played this. Bye.